turning a little bit back about the jig that you told about, making the bevels of the dagger. I believe I use a very similar jig, where the knife blade is 90 degrees to the work rest, and you just adjust the angle of the work rest. And you said you were using angle cubes,
Yes.
right, to measure the angle. Maybe you have one that is super precise, but the ones that I used in the past that show the one decimal point behind, only one decimal point, they have pretty bad repeatability. And trying to make four perfect bevels, I guess, would be insanely hard even with those.
Yeah, so you're right. The repeatability is kinda... yeah, it's not perfect, but what I was doing is just I put the angle cube in and out 4 or 5 times, and I just make the medium measurement, the one that I will use. So this is the...
It really fucks with me when I try to measure it, and then you're looking from the right side of your platen and you're looking at the screen, and then you can look from the left side and you turn it over the angle cube, and you would expect it to show the same number, but it never does.
No, actually it does not.
It always shows the different number. Yeah, it's always off by like a couple of tenths.
But as crazy as this seems, I use this technique for the rough grinding, kinda, because I just mark a center line. I then use this technique, and I look with my eye to see if I'm centered on the center line of the grind of the dagger and on the center line of the edge. And at some point, it's so thin, you can't really see it. So what I do is I just take a can, like a WD-40 can, I put it on the surface plate, and I scratch that can with the blade, and I flip it, and scratch again, and if it's off, then the bevel is not centered.
I get it. Oh, so you are checking, it's like a height gauge? Something similar like that?
I also use the height gauge, but it's like the height gauge, you use it to scribe the knife, but this time I use the knife to scribe something else. And
that's smart. That is really smart.
I learned that from the mastersmiths themselves. So I'm just asking them how they did. And I grab all the techniques I've been told, and I just mix them and try what suits best for me. And actually this works very good. I do that with the tip of the knives too, to look if they are centered or not, even when the handle is on. Because if it's not centered, it means that maybe the handle is not symmetrical or the grind is not perfect. And you can't hide mistakes with that.
And it sounds like you've been doing forging for like 10 years, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, nearly.
And do you like how jigs appeared in your knife making? Were you using them from the start, or were they like came in with the suggestions from other mastersmiths, or I don't know, just...
So the jig I used for that dagger is a suggestion from my friend Josh Fisher. He used that all the time when he makes dagger, because when I started I was always doing freehand grind and no jigs at all, because I always had that weird opinion that just imagine tomorrow I don't have that jig anymore, or I'm at another shop, whatever, I won't be able to work. So I always wanted to learn by myself and then use those techniques. But now that I know the basics, I don't care about using a jig, because if it makes things better in less amount of time, we are business owners, so we can't lose time in stupid ways.
You need quick and consistent results that are high quality.
Yes, exactly.
You have no time to play around. And you are full time, right?
Yes, so before doing knives full time, I was doing fabrication. I was working in a forging and a fabrication shop where I was doing a lot of artist blacksmith. There is a French word for that. We call that ferronnerie. It's the art of making scrolls and a lot of forging to make railings and stairs and gates. So I was doing that for 6 years and doing knives after work, and that's when I passed my JS, and it's been now a bit more than a year that I'm a full-time knife maker, so I wanted to do fabrication too, and in the end, I have enough work with my knives, and enough things to do, so no more fabrication at the moment.
So after 1 year of being full-time as a knife maker, how do you find it?
That's a good question. It depends on the day.
I'm in a very similar boat. Exactly.
Monday, you are asking yourself, why am I doing that? And the next morning, you're like full of energy and you want to conquer the world. And 2 hours later, you just break a blade and you ask yourself again why you do that work.
That is very accurate. Yeah. Wins are very high. The losses are very low. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. I've never thought that way, but it's very true actually. There is no medium line.
And looking at your work, and of course speaking with you, you are like very one-off maker. Do you work with any distributors, purveyors, or it's just all custom work from custom clients that are directly going to you?
So my career has been pretty weird because my first knife show, as I told you, was Atlanta. And I was just going to test for Journeyman there. And 1 week before takeoff from France to go to the show, a friend of mine calls me and said, I won't be able to exhibit. My table will be lost, so I give it to you. And that's how I exhibited there. So things started pretty quickly, out of nowhere. And I'm not in the business since a long time, less than 2 years actually. So, and I'm still a young maker in the works. There is a lot of things I need to achieve. So for the moment, I just have customers in France and some in the States, and I'm not working with purveyors or anything, but a lot of custom orders actually. But I think it's interesting to find a balance between custom work and what you want to make. Because sometimes I'm asking myself why people are not asking me to make that kind of knives. And you just remember because you never made them and they don't know you can do that. So you have to show it even if you're not sure of selling that work. I think it's super important.
That's very accurate. That is such a important point where, just show off your skill. And I guess you have to allocate some time just to showcase what you can actually do to, the work that you do is the work that you get. So if you do the same knife every time, you get just to make the same knife every time.
Yeah, that's true. I'm always afraid of just getting lost in one design or one kind of knife and just make it and never go past that. Or also going too much. When you add too much things into one knife and you put gold and you put compound grind and everything. And I think I don't care what other people do. I'm not judging them, but I would be afraid to end up like that. Because when I see the Brazilian knife makers, they sometimes make very simple work, just simple hunters out of monosteel. It's extremely simple. But to get that simplicity, it's a lot of work, as you said earlier with the designing of the knife. Just a few lines, but that's a ton of work. It's very, very intensive to find that balance.
And talking about a great design, could you maybe talk and tell more our listeners about the collaboration that you had with Karis Fischer, where the sub-hilt fighter that I looked at your Instagram and the Damascus is beautiful, it's busy, but the lines, themselves, and the contouring on the handle and like everything together fits so nicely. It looks fancy yet